Now I am alone. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from her working all his visage wand, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing, for Hecuba. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears, and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty, and appall the free, confound the ignorant, and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy-mettled rascal, peak like John of Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. No, not for a king, upon whose property and most dear life a damned defeat was made. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain? Breaks my pate across, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face, gives me the line the Lord is deeper to the lungs. Who does witness? Huh? Zounds. I should take it. But it cannot be that I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter. Wear this. I should have fatted all the region kites with this slave's offer. Bloody, bawdy, villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless, villain. Oh, vengeance! Why? What an ass am I? Aye, sure, this is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must, like a whore, unpack my heart with words, and fall a cursing like a very drab, a scullion, firebolt. About my brains. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have by the very cunning of the scene been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players place something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tend him to the quick if he would blench. I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. Yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Hello. Welcome to the channel. Brian Jennings here, your host, the Critical Sorcerer. This channel exists as a method to process my diseased pathological relationship with Quentin Tarantino, which he is obviously lying egregiously about. Right? It's obvious, right? There's no way that like honest, well-meaning people would hear the claims that I'm alleging, right, and not demand an answer, at least the first time. And he's surrounded by yes men, 100%. There's no one but people who kiss his ass around him constantly, right? So they say, okay, he's lying, okay, sure, he's insane, right? But what I'm saying is that the tactics that I decry, right, the tactics that I'm discussing here, they're all the same tactics, right? If you know the game, right, the psychic mind game, right? Right? Quentin played his mind games and wanted me to question him about cinema speculation at a screening of De Niro Con last year in June. But he didn't want to say anything practically to me, right? He wanted me to be directed with his mind. And I was all the way there. Right? But in that moment, I wanted him to direct me. Right? No more mind games.
And in his mind, right, he's saying, oh, all he had to do was this one thing, and then he could have said no more. Right? Sounds nice. Do I believe it? Nah, I don't believe it. These are the games that he plays, right? And he's bogged down in a bunch of bullshit in terms of his mind. I can't imagine all those actors that he's jumped into their minds, right? He's just buried in psychic baggage, right? But they all stooped before the Douglas Rage, right? So he stuck his nose up in my letter, which I wanted him to take, right? Or look me in the eye and tell me what you wanted me to do, right? And he turned his back on me, so I turned my back on him. I followed his direction, right? It was petty. It was petty, right? Tribeca was my fault. Like, I knew what he wanted. I wanted to give him what he wanted, but something within me compelled me to not do it. And if I'm thinking reasonably now, and I always have been, right, that I operate on a polar opposite frequency than he does, right? And so while those things should attract each other, right, I sensed some piece of him that, right, enjoyed violating my mind, right? That in his mind, he's like, oh, ha, 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 yeah, like he's a show pony, he can, right, like this is gonna be badass, right? And it would have been, right? And in that way, right, I hated my decision for a long time, right? But no psychic violation. Now I have no choice. Now we're all in it forever, right? And he, right, compounds his evil upon me as much or as little as he wants every day, right? After Tribeca didn't go the way that he wanted, right? He was stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? And he began lying to everyone around him, right? Because he can't, right? He made the decision to not say anything to me, right? Like that's why he didn't get what he wanted, right? If he would have sent me an email, if he would have sent me a letter, I wouldn't have even asked for his autograph, right? I wouldn't have played the game. I would have said, okay, this is my boundary, right? This is my director, right? But he turned it into a weird magic game. That's like, right? So, right? My point is that we're here now because of Quentin, right? That you can put Tribeca on me, right? And that's fine, right? But after it didn't go the way that he wanted, right? He and the people around him entered into a covenant to compel me to lose my mind, right? And on some level has succeeded, though primarily they have not succeeded because they have no depth, right? Their conspiracies are shallow and evil, right? Evil is not intelligent, right? It's magic, right? Blind rage is a magical state, right? And that's what all this is about. I sent him a scene about a writer, right, in a fit of blind rage, which is what happened to me, right? And so he's doing all of this, right? So that I'll die. He's hoping that I'll die between now and the time that whatever the fucking movie critic has become emerges, because it has my intellectual property in it. So after Tribeca emerged, the daughter, right, Allison, right, AllieJean_4, right, and I guess her boyfriend has replied to some of my comments. I left some savage comments, right, which is to say I wrote her messages, right, and said, what is the truth, right? And she didn't want to say anything, so I commented a few times, right? All she's got to do is deny my allegations, right? And this is what makes me certain, right, that Quentin is lying to everyone around him, right? Because you don't hear the things that I'm talking about and not have a strong opinion about them, right? And so, right, any way you stack it, everyone that's around him, they're all looking at him in a different way, right? All these people that I've emailed, right? And so the daughter came into the equation, right? So that he could make me appear insane, so that he could either lie and show them a document that doesn't exist, right? Because he can't say, show them the document that I sent you because it doesn't exist, right? Right? To justify him playing Russian roulette with his career, right? Or, right, it's a mixture of that and that he just wanted me to blow my brains out, right? He's not a wise guy, right? He's an angry, violent man, right? Who gets off on violating people's minds, right? And so, right, from August until the new year, right, it was, oh, this woman loves you. She's like, oh, you're my son-in-law. I'm going to buy you all a starter home. All the same tactics, right? It's all the same tactics, right? The same tactics that he discusses in his novel, right? Not in my novel, in his novel, right? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the novelization, right? And so at the new year, on New Year's Eve, I printed out her picture and I started remote viewing her for the first time, right? I started like, and that's where the board comes from, right? The Celestial Vision board, right? And so, right, after about maybe 4 days, right, she was a prostitute. You know, this is my daughter. He's claiming, oh, this is my daughter, right? And I've always known that I could look up his kids, right? Like I know his daughter's a little girl. Like yeah, the internet exists. Like I know that, right? But like this was my guilt. This is me being a loving, trusting guy, right? I'm very gullible, right? I believe anything anyone tells me, right? Any of my family will tell you that, right? So, right after a couple of days, she was a prostitute who does debased things, awful, debauched things, right? For $500 an hour. Right? She's a cheap, nasty bitch. And then a few days later, I have no daughter, right? That he admitted to me. All through the same tactics, right? It's all the same tactics, right? And that leads me to believe that he has some sort of document that he shows them that is a lie, right? Everything that he tells them is lies, right? And so once he admitted to me that he has no daughter, then it became obvious, like, oh, you've been lying to me. Like, there's no hope for reconciliation, right? Like, no one does all of these things, right? Never expecting to spend any time with the other person, right? And have them want to live, right? Like, no, he wants me to die. He expects me to be in the ground, right? That he thinks that because he's a famous guy, that he owns being a psychic, right? And so I've been trying to come clean ever since, right? And around the same time, I had the thought, oh, what else is he prepared to do to put me in the ground? And that's why I'm writing Alan Moore right now, right? Because it's just ugly and evil and dangerous. And if I do the same things, he'll murder me. He will. I don't care what he says. I don't care what he tells people. Right? He's an evil, dangerous man, right? And he's got somebody who would do it right now, I'm sure, right? That let's just say that it's all psychological trauma, right? If that's true, God willing it is, you know, then it just further proves my point, right? That he's not well in his mind, right? That he's done all of these things, right? Because he can't stand the thought of there being a single actor in the world that didn't bend before his psychic dominion. Right? Right? Newsflash. Right? I don't have to be a movie star. Right? I thought that because you violated my mind, there was like some place for reconciliation, right? And I suspected everyone around him was like, no, you turned it into a fucked up mind game, not him. It's his career. And he resented me for it because I turned everyone against him by being honest. Right? So, right? How does he do what he does? Right? The things that we talk about on this channel rarely have anything to do with the movies, because this thing that we're engaged in has nothing at all to do with the movies. Right? That Quentin sees the movies as the ultimate occult expression of will and intention. That's why he does what he does. Right? Among other things. Right? There's other things that he does too. Like he stole all of my secrets and I stole all of his. Right? And so he can lie and I can lie. But I don't lie. Right? But they're my secrets. He stole them. Right? But, right? This channel is dedicated to processing the nature of our relationship. We have become a case study in remote viewing. He and the people around him, well, perhaps it's all just him. I do acknowledge that, right? They've spent so much time remote viewing me, right? That it's become a diseased, pathological relationship, right? Where it's a true hive mind. We're all just like in each other's heads all the time. Or it's just boom, me and him, you know? That he's like that that everything that he's done, right? Like for sure, the father-in-law, right? David Berlinski, Stephen Meyer, right? Trey Anastasio, right? That's all Quentin. That it's like a sick intellectual exercise, and that's discussed in fairly detailed in the first essay of my novel on magic, right? That a memory is its own disease, right? That a practitioner, right? If they're just as wicked as they come, right? But this channel exists to discuss what's occurring, right? You have to accept that there is a horizon, right? That there is a point with which you can never circumvent, right? And that's called the lesser mystery, right? That there's always the question, right? Which is why, right? You can explain how, right? You can who, what, when, where, right? You can answer all the other questions, but why? Can't ever answer, right? But inevitably, you can distill it into one principal question. Which came first, thought or motion? Right? The structural integrity of life can just as easily be some chaotic, haphazard whimsy of happenstance. Yes, but the science and the data does not back that up. 1 second. The data does not support that. The fine-tuning, right? That life is too ordered, right? It's perfectly aligned, right? On that like razor's edge, right?
Of quantum probability.
But if you suppose that fine-tuning indicates design, which indicates designer, right? Then automatically, right? If you just rest in that, you've answered all of your questions. That there's nothing else, right? No matter how far you dissect it or analyze it, right? Inevitably, the horizon of your ignorance requires a leap of faith on some level, right? You either take a leap towards nihilism, right, or towards, right, faith. Right? That they're both branches of faith, right? That you have faith that there's nothing that can't be explained by science, right? That all that I experience sensationally is all that can exist, right? Or it's a faith towards, right, the dignity of the imagination, right? The dignity of a dream, the unconscious, the subconscious, right? The philosophy of Plato, Platonic forms, right? Russellian science, right? That they're each, right? That you're taking a step into an uncertainty, right? That God can never be disproven, right? Nor can it ever be proven, right? I choose to believe that there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. And it behaves in a particular way, that it is forever at rest, and the divine light of deity, right, which is not a creature, right? There's nothing to pray to, right? There's no heaven, there's no hell, right? Space and matter are equal opposites of each other, right? And the divine light of deity is the impetus for motion, though it is equally imbued within what it moves through, right? Right? So, God is divided into two halves of the same coin. I like to say binan chokmah, wisdom and understanding. But essentially, there is this condition called space. And it has X, Y, and Z dimensions, right? And it's however big, right? Is it 100 billion light years wide or 100 billion light years tall? Right? It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? That diffused within that condition, right? Which is the totality of space. Right? In terms of information, lies the potential for all of manifested reality. Right? This is pre-Roman Bones' holographic model. Right? So, diffused equally in terms of volumetric pressure, distributed throughout that. Right? That quantum hologram of electric potential, probability,
is the impetus for motion, the celestial zephyr, the divine light of deity, right? The impetus for motion, right? And so, forever at rest, deity seeks to express its knowing after a time and decides to move, to breathe upon, right, the hologram of quantum probability and electric potential. And so, it does, right? It breathes upon it, and matter emerges out of space thereby. How does that occur, right? It emerges, right, per Russellian science, as a pressure condition, right, through thinking, right, not through Zeus thinking in the clouds, right, through an abstract intellectual divinity, right, that is embedded within, right, the subspatial hologram, right, so divine in its nesting and complete that it dissolves into seeming non-existence or dead space, truly inert space. And so, the dihedral with which the divine light exerts its pressure upon the structural hologram, upon space, right, reflects what it casts out materially as a corpuscular shadow that we define as matter, as measurable matter, right? And so, this is the one that I like to use a lot, even though it's falling apart, right? That each, right, again, you close this in a sphere and you cast a circle around it. That's called a great circle, right? Each degree, 360 degrees of that circle, is a potential vector of pressure upon the spatial hologram, right? Upon the structural scaffold, right? And so, an infinite array of circles can go around this, right? Each circle offering 360 potential vectors of pressure, right? Each vector of pressure offering a novel electrical coagulation, right? Or a novel pattern of matter, right? So, on and 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 on. This goes. What does it have to do with the movie Critic, right? Right? Inevitably, right, per this standard, right, you end up at man, right? That life continues to get more complex, right? As the intellectual light exerts more complicated arrays of pressure vectors upon the structural hologram, the scaffold, right? And man, right, is the first and last creature that can offer a sincere moment of appreciation and veneration back upon our divine origin as prayer or veneration or charity, right? As love, compassion, sacrifice, right? So, right, the highest levels of mankind, right, sees the adept, sees you becoming a psychic clairvoyant, right? A person who can remote view people with your mind, right? You can find people with your mind, right? Right? You can heal the sick, right? And far easier on the other side of that, right? Which is what I'm in the middle of, right? You can use your mind to try to destroy people, right? High evil, right? That there's high good, right? That you can, right? You can go to a cancer ward and boom, exert the same pressure, you know? Or you can have a sick fetish, right? And try to destroy anyone, right? Really sick, sad, evil, right? And so inevitably, man ends up at the... So if God is expressing its knowing upon the eternity of the blank canvas of space, right? Then man mirrors that ability by expressing eternal thoughts within themselves upon the eternity of a blank page, right? And so if we take this, for example, right, just like it's mentioned in my previous video, right? This, right, is the blueprint for this. You see? Right? That through the dignity of expressing an eternal thought of God on the blank page, right, I manifest something beautiful in the world, right? And so, right, on the other side of that, right, you can have things like this, right?
I'm expressing a divinity upon the eternity of the blank page, right? Right? It gives me access if I so choose. I don't stare at this. I'm not evil, right? It gives me something like this, right? That they're all, right? That we're all expressing the same thing, right? And so Quentin, right? Right? He's always thought that that this has something to do with the movies, but it doesn't have anything to do with the movies at all. This is far beyond the movies. No. This is a primal. It's wisdom, right? Movies are a piece of wisdom, right? And so, right, all he can say is that I'm insane, right? And so this is why this channel exists, right? Because I'm not insane, right? Everything that I'm saying has intellectual validity, right? These are all real people, right? That I'm citing, right? Walter Russell's a real guy. You don't have to believe it, but I'm certain that it's the most graceful expression of man's attempt to codify reality ever, right? And if there is a divine light of deity, it operates on a principle akin to Russellian science, right? Plato, of course, the allegory of the cave. It's all in his writings. This is old hat, right? And it has nothing to do with the movies, right? So, right, what gives him the right? Right? Like he's just being a bully. Right? That's all that's occurring. He's going, ha, 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 ha. And if he says anything, he seems crazy and I can always deny it. Like, oh, like, psh, what a badass I am. Like, oh, I'm so cool. Right? If he does anything, I'll murder that motherfucker. Right? Who could blame him? Right? He wants me to, he wants, like, again, right? It's all to get me to lose my mind, right? It's to get me to eat a bullet, it's to get me to, right? Right? So, I operate on love, right? Like, I don't ever do anything to this man, right? We're always, boom, we're right there, right? And then sometimes I think about how funny it is, and then I'll, like, look up pictures of his wife's feet, and then it's funny. Then it's funny. You could do that, like you could just do that in your life. It's a good looking pair of feet, I'll tell you what. Right? I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he's like he's like obviously it's always been his intention, right, to get me to blow my brains out. That's it. That's it. He didn't do all these things, right? To have to lie to everyone in his life for the last 30 years of his life. Right? And as long as I'm alive, right, they're all going to look at him in relation to me. Right? Right? So, I have to get ready to go to my theater audition. I don't really know what else to say. Right? I'm cutting out the new pieces of the next model. I know he's tired, and we're both tired. But there's nothing I can do about it, right? Like, it's all in his hands, right? That he's gone so far and he's done so much fucked up, awful shit to me, right? Like, that's why I have to write Alan Moore, because he'll actually understand, right? That it behooves him to watch me forever, right? Not because he has to, but because he needs to, right? If he just says, well, what a ride, right? I humiliated him enough, right? No, that's like, right? I can do all the same things, right? And so, right, however this ends, let's just say that he just pays me, right? Let's just say that, right, for my scene, right? That he stops being evil, right? That it stops being a sick exercise in black magic evil, and he pays me however much, 10 million for my scene, 5 million, right? What you think's gonna happen after that, right? He's still gonna watch me forever, right? He's gonna watch me forever. He's gonna have people remote view me forever, right? And they'll be evil whenever they want, and I'll pay people to watch him forever. That's where we're at. It's not, right? And they both have their sick temples for Baphomet, right? Me and my tactics, him and his tactics. And anytime either of us feels any evil, we bury him in it, right? And it's just sad, right? It's just sad, right? That's what it's come to, right? The two of us together could heal the sick, 100%, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind, right? That if all of us came together, right, then we could wreak havoc in a beautiful way, right? And show people, right? But he's more interested in guile and cunning, and there's nothing else that I could say. I could talk about it every day, and I intend to, but there's nothing else to write them. I wrote them 100 fucking pages, 1,000 fucking pages, all just to try to reconcile amicably, right? And they've just insulated him and allowed him to run amok, right, on the psychic landscape like a jackass adolescent, right? And now we've been swallowed by each other. So, pray for me, pray for Quentin. Like, comment, subscribe, share. My heart is with you all. Right? See what's good in your life. Hold those dear to you close. God bless.